I'm Justin Poindexter, Manager for Community and Educational Programs here at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and I'm here with the great, legendary trombone player Art Barron, the last trombonist that Duke Ellington ever personally hired. Art, can you tell us a little bit about how you got this really great gig?
Well, it was, what's the word? You know, I was just right place, right time, serendipitous. And I'd been playing quite a bit with a wonderful trumpet player named Jimmy Maxwell, who was a dear friend of mine, played with, Benny Goodman, studio work in town here. I even played with, I know he met Cootie Williams in Benny Goodman's band, so he had a lot of relationship with the Ellington band. And Mercer Ellington was Duke's son, and he was managing the band and playing trumpet in the section. And so Jimmy gave him my name, and he called me, and I was like, when I got that call, but I said sure, and I thought it was just for 2 one-nighters, and then it turned out to be a tour. I stayed there till Duke passed away in '74.
So did you have to do any kind of audition for Duke?
No audition. They put you in the chair, and I understood. I found out later on a couple of guys were put in that chair and didn't stay, and I was very gleeful that I ended up staying there. It was like a real home.
Yeah.
I felt like I got home. I was a lot younger than most of the guys in the band. There were a couple of us in our mid-20s that they called, there were about 4 of us: Barry Lee Hall, Anita Moore, the singer, Barry was the trumpet player, Rocky White, the drummer. They called us the Mod Squad.
So who else was in the trombone section at
Oh,
that
it was
time?
great. There was a great trombone player, not well known, but he used to play Woody Herman. He was one of these guys, you put a piece of music in front of him, no markings, so different than the way it is today. No dynamics, no articulation, anything. And he interpreted, make beautiful music. His name was Vince Prudente. He's still with us. He lives in France right now, actually. And he was wonderful. And Duke called him Vincenzo Prudente. And Chuck Connors on bass trombone, he was my buddy. Little Chuck. We did a lot of stuff together. And he actually was a great bass trombone player. And it was the 50s. When he graduated from Boston Conservatory, and he was Afro-American, so the chance of getting into an orchestra was just about 0. So he ended up in Duke's band and other bands before that, and he had a specific sound that was just different than a regular trombone. So he played the valve trombone book, which had a different sound, and it was, they would use that sound with the saxophones differently. So it was a great section. It was just, I remember in France, these people were saying, "You are so young, how do you know how to play this music?" And I was very, very happy to be in that band.
Was there an expectation? Duke had so many legendary trombone players through the years. Was there an expectation that the people in the chairs know how to play like Tricky Sam Nanton?
Actually, no, I wasn't. I knew the chair I sat in was the one where the general, although when Lawrence Brown was there, he played the lead and the open solos, and he played a lot of plunger. And he was I think he was the only guy that could do all that. But I was in the chair, but there weren't a lot of plunger solos at the beginning. But gradually, I got moved into that role, which was really nice. Cootie Williams was there. He came in a few months. He came back a few minutes after I joined. And he showed me all kinds of stuff about plunger. And before and after, I can't remember exactly. I think it was after I met Butter Jackson, who was in the band in the 50s, the excellent, wonderful plunger player. And he showed me a lot. So it was more like Duke expected you to be yourself. So it wasn't like you had to fill a role, so to speak. But it was great, because I remember once there was some solo Paul Gonsalves used to do it, and when he was incapacitated, shall we say, Duke would point to me and have me do it. One night I really got the crowd going with it. And someone yelled out, "He never misses," which is true. Like Duke, musicians got to Duke, it was his palette, it's like, and they had all these amazing voices and stuff. So to be part of that, just to be part of that magnetism, that charm of Duke was just, I think while I was in it, I loved it, but I think I even have much more of a respect or I realized what a slim chance it was for that to happen in anyone's life, any musician's life. So I go like, wow, that really happened, It was amazing to be around that influence.
Did you know a lot about Duke's music before you joined the band?
All right, so I'm 23 years old. I was young and white and Jewish, and 2 out of 3 are still the same. But and I had seen him a few times in Connecticut, where I grew up, in Bridgeport at this big auditorium, and I started buying records. Before that, I thought Stan Kenton was everything. And then I heard this Ellington, I went, oh my God. You know, not to put Stan down or anything, but Duke was all about personality. Everybody, it didn't, like in Stan Kenton, you can have different guys play the first, second, third trombone, trumpet, whatever. But in Duke's band, everybody had a voice, a unique voice that he put together in these amazing ways. So I think the phrasing came naturally to me. It's the way I like to play. So it wasn't so difficult like to follow Vinny, who actually Vince used to say that Chuck was playing, because Chuck had been in the band much longer than Vince, so that Vince really had to listen to Chuck the way he phrased, even though Vince was playing the first trombone. So it's like you acquiesce, you know, water finds its own level in a way, you know, to find what to do. And then, I mean, I remember the first gig I ever did, we were playing that same song. We opened with mellow tone, and there's this beautiful trombone background. Okay, so it's in the key of A flat, and I went yada-da-da to a D natural, and I played it so strong that it didn't even sound wrong to me, and no one said, you're fired, and Duke pointed to me during Mood Indigo, so I went down and played a solo, and it's a trio, you know, trumpet, clarinet, and trumpet, clarinet, and tenor sax played it then, and I just stayed and added a fourth voice to it. But he was just, nothing bothered that guy. They apparently had a very slow heartbeat, and nothing bothered him.
Did you have any kind of personal relationship with him while you were
Yeah,
in
I
the
got to know him here and there. One of the things I play is the recorder, you know, the little wooden flute, and I play the whole family. I've been playing for years. And when I first joined the band, I wasn't drinking at all or partaking of that. And so I would go up and practice my recorder in a dressing room at this place called Mr. Kelly's in Chicago. And Duke heard it, and he was writing the Third Sacred Concert. Beautiful music. The valet came, knocked on the door, and said, hey, old man wants to see you. He says, bring that little flute, too. So he wanted to see the range of it and stuff, and he ended up writing the Lord's Prayer for me on the recorder, which I, in Westminster Abbey.
Wow.
And, you know, the end of October, it was freezing in there, and like the next day on the plane after I played it, it's a really beautiful little piece. He had many versions of the Lord's Prayer, and afterwards, next day we're on a plane, he walks by me and he looks at me and says, sensational. And I was like, you know, I put that in my resume, sensational Duke Ellington. Nobody's questioned it yet, you know. So, I mean, we talked once in a while. I bought a great bass recorder, a real big one, while we were on the road, and I showed him that. And, you know, he was cool to talk with, you know. We didn't see him every day. He often drove with Harry Carney, the baritone sax player.
Yeah.
One time I was in my car driving, because we were in the Massachusetts area, so I picked it up from Connecticut, and I'm driving, and I get up this hill. It's after the gig. It's probably 2 in the morning or something, and we come right next to Harry, and Harry always drove Duke. So I pull up even, and Duke opens the window, he looks at me, gives me a look like, I pay you enough money to have a car? You know, even though it's a Volkswagen. And Harry looks at me and says, have you been behind me all this time? I said, yeah, I guess it was me. He said, oh, man, I thought it was a cop. He just